Hello class, it's time for chapter 2 and 3 of our Magic Treehouse book, Midnight on the Moon. Go ahead and take out your book. We should be on page 11. Chapter 2 says it's at the top. The chapter's titled Space Motel. Remember last time we read chapter 1 and found out all about Jack and Annie. Jack and Annie are two siblings. Jack is 8 and Annie's 7. And if you think about it, we already found out some information about those characters. Jack seems to be a little bit more timid. That means he seems to be a little bit more hesitant to do things. Annie seems to be the one that's really fast to go on adventures and do all sorts of new things. Remember, she's the one that woke Jack up. She's the one that said, we don't need a flashlight. She's the one that's a little bit more adventurous. In this chapter, we'll learn more about both of those characters. Now, when we left off, they had just entered the treehouse, wished to go to where the book said they were going to go, to the moon. Now, we're in chapter 2, Space Motel. Remember, follow along with your pointy finger. As you follow along with your pointy finger, you become a better reader. Chapter 2, Space Motel. Jack opened his eyes. He looked out the window. The treehouse had landed inside a large, white room. "What kind of training place is this?" asked Annie. "I don't know," said Jack. The room was round. It had no windows. It had white floors and a curved wall lit by bright lights. "Hello?" Annie called. There was no answer. Where were all the astronauts and space scientists? Jack wondered. "There's nobody here," said Annie. "How do you know?" said Jack. "I just feel it," said Annie. "We better find out where we are," said Jack. He looked at the page in the moon book. Dome slides open to let spacecrafts enter and leave. "Oh, man," Jack whispered. "What's wrong?" said Annie. Jack's heart pounded with excitement. He could hardly speak. "We've landed inside a moon base," he said. Did you catch what year it was? At the bottom of page 12, it said we're in year 2031. So Jack and Annie have actually hopped into the future, and they're in this futuristic moon base. At the top of page 13. "So," said Annie. "So the moon base is on the moon," said Jack. Annie's eyes widened. "We're on the moon?" she asked. Jack nodded. "The book says the moon base was built in the year 2031, he said. "So this book was written after that, which means this book is from the future." "Oh, wow," said Annie. "Morgan must have gone forward in time to borrow it from a future library." "Right," said Jack. "And now we're in the future on the moon." Squeak, squeak. Annie and Jack looked at Peanut. The mouse was running around in circles. "Poor Peanut," said Annie. She tried to pick the mouse up, but Peanut hid behind the mango on the letter M. "Maybe she's nervous about being on the moon," said Annie. "She's not the only one," said Jack. He let out a deep breath. Then he pushed his glasses into place. "So what's a moon base?" asked Annie. Jack looked at the book. He read aloud. "When scientists visit the moon for short periods, they eat and sleep in the moon base." "A space motel," said Annie. "I guess," said Jack. He read more. "The small base has a landing chamber and a room for storing spacesuits. Air and temperature controls make breathing possible." "So that's why we can breathe," Jack said. "Let's explore," said Annie. "We have to find the fourth thing for Morgan." "No, first we should study this map," said Jack. He pulled out his notebook. "You study it," said Annie. Jack copied the map. Then he drew in the treehouse. What did we just learn about Jack? Well, Jack really likes to be prepared, right? Whenever we got reading to do, Jack's doing it. Whenever we're kind of slowing down and thinking through a plan, that's Jack. Annie, she just wants to go for it. You can see there the picture of the map that Jack drew. Turn to page 16. "Okay," he said. He pointed at the X in his drawing. "We're here." Jack looked up. Annie was gone. Oh, brother, Jack said. As usual, she had left without him before they could even make a plan. Jack put the moon book and pencil into his pack. Carrying his notebook and backpack, he started out the window. Squeak, squeak. Jack looked back at Peanut. The mouse was running back and forth on the M. Stay here and be safe, said Jack. We'll be back soon. Jack swung himself over the windowsill. His feet touched the floor of the landing chamber. Annie, he called. There was no answer. Jack looked at his diagram. It showed only one way to go. Jack walked along the curved white wall to the stairs. He climbed the steps to a hallway. Jack, hurry! Annie was at the end of the hallway, standing in the airlock. She peered out a window in the giant door. Jack hurried towards her. Annie stepped aside so he could look out the window too. Oh, man, said Jack. What he saw took his breath away. He stared at a rocky, gray land. The land was filled with giant craters and tall mountains. The sun was shining, but the sky was ink black. Say hi to the moon, Annie said softly. Turn the page. We're on chapter 3, starts on page 8. What do you think is going to happen in this chapter? One of you heard saying open sesame before. I always think of my little brother. My little brother used to always say open sesame when he wanted to open a door. If they're going to open a door and go out on the moon, let's read and find out. The fourth M thing must be out here, said Annie. Beside the door was a button with the word open on it. Annie reached for the button. Wait! Jack grabbed her hand. There's no air on the moon, remember? Oh, right. But we have to go find the M thing. Let's see what the book says Jack. He pulled the book out of his pack. He flipped through it until he found a page that showed the surface of the moon. He read aloud. It takes 14 Earth days to equal 1 day on the moon. No air protects the moon from the sun's rays, so daytime heat reaches 260 degrees. Jack looked at Annie. I told you our blood would boil if we went out there, he said. Yuck, she said. Jack read from the book again. Moon scientists wear spacesuits, which have controls to keep them from getting too hot or too cold. They have tanks which provide air for 2 hours. Where do we get spacesuits? Asked Annie. She looked around, then trotted back down the hall. Maybe there? Jack was studying his map. Let's try the spacesuit storeroom. Don't look at the map, said Annie. Look at the real room. Jack glanced up. Annie was peering through a doorway off the hall. There's a ton of space stuff in here, she said. Jack went to look. Bulky white suits hung from hangers. Air tanks, helmets, gloves, and boots sat in neat rows on shelves. Wow, it's like the armor room in a castle, said Jack. Yeah, with huge armor, said Annie. Let's pick out the smallest stuff, said Jack. The suits can go over our clothes. Annie found the smallest white suit, and Jack found the next smallest. They stepped into them. Then Annie locked Jack's air tank into place. Thanks, he said, and he did the same for her. Thanks, she said. Gloves, said Jack. He and Annie pulled on white gloves. Boots, said Annie. They each pulled on a pair of huge white boots. Helmets, said Jack. He reached for a helmet. Wow, they're pretty light, he said. I thought they'd be like knights' helmets. Page 22. Jack and Annie put the helmets on. They locked each other's into place. I can't move my head right or left, said Annie. Me neither, said Jack. Let's try walking. Jack and Annie moved clumsily around the room. Jack felt like a fat snowman. Close your visor, said Annie. They both closed their see-through visors. Cool air filled Jack's helmet. I can breathe, Annie yelled. Her voice boomed in Jack's ears. Ow! Talk quietly, Jack said. We have two-way radios inside our helmets. Sorry, whispered Annie. Jack put the moon book back in his pack. Then he slung the pack over his shoulders. Okay, he said, remember, we only have 2 hours of air in our tanks, so we need to find the fourth M thing really fast. I hope we can find it, said Annie. Me too, said Jack. He knew they could not go home until they did. Let's go, said Annie. She gave Jack a little push. Watch it. No goofing off, he said. We don't want to fall over in these suits. Just go. Go, said Annie. She pushed him out of the room. They walked back to the airlock. Ready? Said Annie. Open sesame. She pressed the open button. A door slowly slid closed behind them. A door opened in front of them, and Jack and Annie stepped out onto the moon. It's the end of chapter 3. We'll pick it up on Monday with chapter 4, Moon Rabbits.